Alright, I finally got around to making a video about the official trailer for Season 3 of The Witcher show on Netflix, and I must say there's a lot of overlap with the teaser they released earlier, which probably makes sense, but if you've watched that video, I've already covered or speculated about a lot of what's shown here, but let's quickly go over it anyway. So, it opens up with Geralt, Yennefer and Ciri at an elven statue talking about neutrality.
It won't get you a statue, but it'll certainly help in keeping you alive.
Judging by the white roses, this has got to be Shaelmaar, and what's more, it would seem like it's the same scene we saw in the teaser with Ciri and Yen, where Franceska and Vilgefortz were in the background. Initially, I thought they were all teamed up against someone, but it would seem like the Scoia'tael led by Franceska are fighting against the main characters. It seems Netflix is combining a few scenes from Blood of Elves and Time of Contempt, but Franceska and Vilgefortz were not personally involved originally. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I would imagine Geralt and Vilgefortz are on good terms, more or less. Same with Yennefer and Franceska, but I guess the tables have turned. It looks like there will be some cool fight scenes, especially now that Ciri has begun unlocking her Witcher skills, so I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of which, we see Yennefer and Ciri training some more, growing trees, which is actually a good thing. All we had so far was Yen teaching Ciri the fuck spell. Meanwhile, in the books, the training was at the root of the bond between Ciri and Yen. These are precisely the moments that set up scenes like this one in the games, so we do need a little more in that regard, and perhaps we're getting it in Season 3. We have Yen doing some more magic, perhaps fighting Franceska, because it's still in the Elven ruins. Meanwhile, Geralt is just slow walking in the background. Rience is casting some fire spells as well, most likely at Geralt. We saw some more in the teaser actually. I suspect Philippa Eilhart may be involved in these events, even though they don't show her in the trailer. Speaking of Philippa, Dandelion shows up, wearing a bit more makeup than usual, I think. There are some scenes with just him and Geralt, which I imagine are before they reunite with Ciri and Yen. Meanwhile, Ciri meets Tissaia, and some of the other mages perhaps, for the first time. But back to the Bard, I've been hearing about some rather big changes. Don't quote me on that, but apparently Dandelion is romantically involved with none other than Radovid. So I gotta see it first, and then we can talk more about it. We see the Wild Hunt chasing Ciri again, which is nice. There's no mention of nerdy Avalach, but I hope he makes an appearance. I suspect that they might have the Wild Hunt descend during the battle between the elves and the main characters, and that may be how my suspicions that they end up working together come true. You know, uniting against a common foe. We'll see. I must say I am mildly excited about these events. Another thing we get to see properly this time is the monster that chases Ciri on Thanedd. It looks like a mutated Shaelmaar or something. Sadly, it doesn't seem like Geralt is sparing this one.
No, please, don't hurt me. And then wow! Fangs. Just like a...
We also have Emhyr holding little Ciri's painting. We still don't know exactly what his motivations are, and whether he's still doing something with the elves, manipulating them somehow. What's more, I don't think there's any mention of Fringilla and Cahir. Are they imprisoned? Will they escape? Will they stay together? Could that perhaps set the stage for Season 4, where they would reunite with Geralt and meet Regis together? Oh well, I guess it's too early to say. I just don't see Fringilla getting back together with the other sorcerers. And of course we have some scenes with Geralt and Yennefer, mostly on Thanedd, but also somewhere in the woods. Perhaps they're trying to recreate the Beltane sequence, or however that name is pronounced. I suppose the romance between the two needs some reinvigoration. It was, in my opinion, somewhat lacking in Season 2. In fact, I think Yennefer had more chemistry with Cahir. But back to Thanedd, we see a bunch of other characters dancing around. There is our dear darling Triss, there is Sabrina, Fringilla's uncle. I suspect one of these two may be Lydia. Also appearing for the first time is Kira Metz, or was it Margarita? Okay, I checked, it's Margarita. There's Vilgefortz and Tisaya, and is that Kira Metz? I don't think so. Not sure who that is. But overall, it's fairly obvious now that the season will culminate with the coup on Thanedd, and it will end more or less where the 4th book ends, Time of Contempt. And if they do it well, it could be quite the epic finale. I'm not gonna say too much to avoid spoilers, but I think it's gonna be better than the Season 2 finale, which they kind of pulled out of their... So I think that's more or less it. Perhaps I should also address a number of complaints about the way Yennefer looks. I think it's mostly in reference to these scenes. It's about her clothing looking a bit too modern on the left side, not really time appropriate, and to the right, just not the way most of us would picture Yennefer. And I agree, the show has had plenty of issues with costumes and general looks from the very beginning. So at this point I'm hardly even noticing it. It certainly doesn't surprise me. Now it's worth mentioning that they did make a small change in that department after Season 1. I talked a little bit about it in my Season 2 reviews. It was in relation to Vilgefortz and the Temple of Militile. But if you look at Vilgefortz, for example, he looked more or less in line with the rest of the characters and the general setting. He was groomed and dressed in a way that was fitting and appropriate. But in Season 2, and by the looks of it in Season 3, he suddenly started wearing these opulent robes and golden jewelry. He has longer beard and more intense eyeshadow, and instead of a northern mage, he looks more like perhaps a character from another work of fiction based on the Middle East or India. And that may be the case with Yennefer here as well. So yes, that's it, I think. Do let me know how you feel about these matters, the trailer in general and the things I talked about. Other than that, thank you very much for watching, special thanks to my supporters and YouTube members, and until the next video, stay tuned and be good.